Greetings, math fans. All right, so this is day 2 of Chapter 7B, and actually it's a very short chapter. In fact, this is the last day of 7B. So we learned in day 1 about I. Okay, what does I represent? You guys should know it represents the square root of -1, right? So just as a review, if I had the square root of -4, remember, you take, it's really -1 times 4, but I told you guys, just take the negative out, and it's I. So that's all you had to really remember, or at least for the first part. So it would be I root 4, so the answer for that would be 2I, okay? Okay, so the square root of -4 is 2I. All right, so we also learned about this. So let me delete this. Do you guys remember when you have the different exponents? You remember I said, in fact I wrote this in red, I remember that, no exponent with I. Okay, not allowed to have an exponent. And so if you remember that, we had I to the 0. Just make that chart, I to the 0, I to the 1, I to the 2, and I to the 3. And remember, these numbers represent when you divide by 4, right? If you divide by 4, and then you have a remainder, and you're going to have a remainder of 0, 1, 2, or 3. And I even told you how to remember that. I said if it's a remainder of 0, it's if you divide it, it's 0.00, so it came out evenly. If it's 1, it's remainder, it's 0.25. The remainder here is 0.50. Remainder here is 0.75. So you divide by 4. You look at the remainder. Don't even care what the numbers. Just look at the remainder, and then you have those is either out of 0, 1, 2, 3. And last thing, so I'm going to do this in a different color here. I to the 0. Remember, I to the 0 is 1. I to the first is I to the second is -1, and I to the third is -I. Okay, so that's kind of what you had to remember. This is all review from 7B day 1, which is just the last day, the first day we covered. Okay, have to remember that. Super, super, super important. Okay, and actually, I kind of highlighted a little bit. This one is a really important one. You'll see this a lot. I squared. Okay, they're all kind of important, but I squared kind of comes up a little bit more than others. So remember, if it's I squared, automatically negative, or -1, I should say. Okay, so it's already negative, then it becomes positive. And I'll show you a little bit as we go on to do some of the problems. But this is key here. So I'm going to erase this because I need to do my lesson on here. Okay, but you guys should have this. I would write it on another piece of paper just so you can reference it, something, but it should be on your note sheet for the class as well, so you know what to do with that. Okay? All right, so let me delete this. And basically what we're doing today, math fans, is we're doing, we call it operations with complex numbers. So operations, so this is day 2. Operations with complex numbers. Okay? You treat an I as the same way you treat an X. So if I said 5x plus 2x, you guys are telling me it's 7x. Please don't tell me it's 7x squared. That's like really bad math, okay? If I have 5x's and I hand you 2 more x's, or if you have 5x and I hand you 2 more x's, you have 7x's. You don't have any x squareds in your hand, just x's, okay? So 5i plus 2i is, ta-da, 7i. What? It's easy. Okay, super, super easy. So adding and subtracting, everything is the same. Multiplying, everything is the same with I as it is with x. Okay? So let me just do a couple problems here now, just to show you how simple this really is. If I said 2 plus 7i plus 3 minus 6i. This is just like back in the day when that was 2 plus 7x plus parentheses 3 minus 2x. Or 6x. Same thing. So I'm going to write it out as 2 plus 7i, and because it's plus, I'm just going to say plus 3 and then minus 6i, right? The plus is nice. When it's a negative, you got to distribute it, okay? And then we're going to add these together. 2 plus 3 is 5. 7i minus 6i is 1i, so plus I. And math fans, that is your answer. It's that easy. Okay, so super easy. Let's do the exact same problem though. 2 plus 7i minus 3 minus 6i. All right, the only thing you have to remember, and please do not forget this, you have to distribute to both those terms there, guys. So basically what you do is you change the sign of the 3 and the negative 6i. So you have 2 plus 7i. If I change the sign, it's minus 3 plus 6i. It's very simple. And then you combine terms again. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 7i plus 6i is 13i. And that's the answer. And guys, usually the I is at the end. So it's usually some number plus or minus some number with I. Okay, that's what we call standard form. It's usually in that order. Okay? So let me just do one of each of these again. Again, it's really pretty easy to do. Negative 7 minus 6i plus negative 3 plus 2i. Okay, we're going to do the exact same one, but we're going to do that now with minus in between, just to show you. So exactly the same thing, except this one is plus and this one is minus. Okay, super easy to do. Okay, so let's do it. Plus is easy. Negative 7 minus 6i minus 3 plus 2i, right? You just rewrite it. And then you combine terms. Negative 7 minus 3, negative 10. I don't care if you use your calculator. You're certainly not typing an I in your calculator. You are just typing the numbers in. And negative 6i plus 2i is negative 4i. And that's my answer. Okay? This one, negative 7 minus 6i, and then we're going to distribute the negative. So plus 3 and minus 2i. So negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4, and negative 6i minus 2i is negative 8i. And that's your answer. Okay? So that's adding and subtracting. Super easy. Okay, let's do multiplication. Multiplication is the same. Okay, so let's say I have, let's do 2i times 3 minus 4i. So you're just going to distribute it. Okay, so again, so we've got 2i times 3 is 6i. And 2i times negative 4i is negative 8i squared. Remember, I times I is I squared. Don't, just like x times x is x squared. So I times I is I squared. Okay? So if you leave it in this form, I'm going to take a point off because it's not right. Why is it not right, math fans? You guys should recognize it is not right because of that baby right there. No exponents in an I. You're not allowed to have an exponent. Okay? So this is pretty easy. You could divide it. You could say 2 divided by 4. If you have that little chart handy, 2 divided by 4 is just 0.5. And 0.5 means remainder 2, which you would tell me is I squared. And it's like, well, why did you do that? You know it's I squared. It says it right there. So remember, guys, if this is I squared, what is I squared? I mean, if you look at the chart, I squared is negative 1. This is a really important one. It really is. I squared is negative 1. So what you're going to do is, I mean, you could write I squared is negative 1, or I could just say, well, what does that change that to? Plus 8. So 6i plus 8. That's my answer to this problem. And really, you should do it 8 plus 6i. That's really what it is, okay? But guys, don't leave the I in there. I've had kids do that before. They say, oh, it's negative 8i squared, and then they say, oh, change the sign. They go plus 8i. No, I squared is negative 1. There's no I in there anymore. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so let's do another one here. Hopefully you guys are good with that. If I said negative 4i times 3 minus 6i. All right, so let's distribute it. Negative 4i times 3 is negative 12i. Negative 4i times negative 6i is positive 24i squared. Okay, that's all you have to worry about is that I squared. That I is perfect over here. Negative 12i is beautiful. So what's I squared? Negative 1. So what are you going to write? Negative 12i instead of plus 24, minus 24. I don't care if you do this route. If you say, oh, well, I squared is negative 1, Mr. Curvis. Okay, so do that first, and then here's your negative 24. So negative 24 minus 12i. That's your answer, right? It should be in standard form. The real part and then the imaginary part. Okay, so one last one here. And then we'll do another little more multiplication. So if I said negative I times negative 3I plus 6. Okay, so we distribute negative I times negative 3I is, I lost the negative there, is 3I squared. Everybody okay with that? Right, negative times negative. Negative 1 times 3 is positive 3I squared. And then negative I times 6 is minus 6I. Okay, what is that, baby? Negative 3. Negative 3 minus 6I. We're done. Okay, so it's not bad. Just got to remember, no exponents with i's. All right, so the next kind of problem we're going to do here is, you'll recognize this, let me just write it out here. 2 plus 3i times 5 minus 4i. Okay, what does that look like? Right, if I put an x there, if I said 2 plus 3x times 5 minus 4x, what would you do? I hope you tell me you would do FOIL. And that's what you do. FOIL. Remember, FOIL stands for first. The first term, which is that. The outer term, which is that. The inner term, which are that. And the last term is that. So basically, you're multiplying everything in the first set of parentheses times everything in the second set of parentheses. That's basically what you're doing. Okay, so let me get rid of these things here. Okay, so let's do it. FOIL is first. 2 times 5, 10. Outside, 2 times negative 4i, negative 8i. Inside, 3i times 5 plus 15i. Last, 3i times negative 4i is negative 12i squared. Now I can combine these together. So I'm going to do a couple things right off the bat here, guys. I'm going to combine these because they both have i's in them. Okay, so I'm going to say 10, and then negative 8 plus 15 is positive 7. So plus 7i. What is negative 12i squared, sorry. What is negative 12i squared? It's plus 12, right? We talked about that. Whenever you see an I squared, you better be changing that to a negative 1. Or whatever the number is, if it's, negative 15i squared, it's 15. If it's 3i squared, it's negative 3. You change the sign because I squared is negative 1. That's what negative 1 does when you multiply. It changes the sign. Okay, so anyway, we're not done yet. We've got to say 10 plus 12 is 22 plus 7i. There you go. That's the answer to that. Okay, so FOIL is just, again, you're just foiling it out, and then, first out or last, and change your I squared to negative 1, combine terms, and you're good. Okay, let's try another one here. 6 plus 2i and 3 minus i. Okay, if I do FOIL, first is 18. 6 times 3 is 18. Outside, 6 times negative I is negative 6i. Inside, plus 6i. And last, minus 2i squared. Okay, that's cool. Well, it's kind of nice. This is kind of random, but these guys cancel out. So don't put 0. I mean, it's gone. So basically you have 18, and what's negative 2i squared? Plus 2. So my answer for this problem is 20. Okay, let's try another one here. Negative 3 minus 2i and negative 4 minus I. Minus I. Okay, that's good. All right, so FOIL. And guys, remember, it's FOIL, by the way. It's multiplication because there's nothing in between here, right? The other ones had adding and subtracting signs, and then it's adding and subtracting. When there's no adding and subtracting sign, it's multiplication. That's important to know that, okay? So anyway, negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. Negative 3 times negative I is plus 3i. Negative 2i times negative 4i is plus 8i. And negative 2i times negative 1i is positive 2i squared. A lot of negatives. Okay, and then we can combine these together. So 12, 3i plus 8i is 11i. And then plus 2i squared is what? Minus 2. So 12 minus 2 is 10, plus 11i. And there's your answer in nice standard form too. Okay? So pretty easy. Couple more different types of problems. Let's see. If I had, and this is just the way things work out, but if I had 3 minus 6i times 3 plus 6i, well, remember, this is kind of like difference of two squares, if you guys can remember that. But it's the same thing, guys. You just FOIL it out. So first is 3 times 3 is 9. Outer is plus 16i, or plus 18i, pardon me. Inside is minus 18i. And last is minus 36i squared. Okay, 6 times 6, 36, and then I squared. So these cancel out, which is kind of nice. So you wind up having 9, and what does that give you? Plus 36. So you get 45, and that's your answer. Okay, so that's pretty easy, right? What happens if I get a problem like this? 3 minus 4i quantity squared. What do you do with that? You guys should know you got to write it twice. If you don't write it twice, it's completely wrong. If you square the 3 and the square of the negative 4i, it's completely wrong. You have to write it twice. So 3 minus 4i and 3 minus 4i. Okay, and then you FOIL it. So first gives me 3 times 3 is 9. Outer minus 12i. Inner minus 12i. And last plus 16i squared. Okay, combine these guys together. So we get 9 minus negative 12 minus 12 is negative 24. And plus 16i squared, baby. It's minus 16. So minus 16. So 9 minus 16 is negative 7 minus 24i. And that's your answer. Okay, so that's writing it twice. Pretty straightforward. Okay, couple more here. And then I got a few more types of problems here. If I say 2i to the 4th power. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to do 2 to the 4th power and I to the 4th power. It's just basically you're raising each of these to the 4th power. It's kind of like saying 2x to the 4th power, right? Didn't you do 2 to the 4th power and x to the 4th power? And you have to say, what is 2 to the 4th power? You can put in your calculator. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. But put in your calculator. Use your y to the x button. You know how to do that. Oops, so it's that would be 16x to the 4th. But if I do this one, I get 16i to the 4th. If you leave it like this, you know you're going to lose a point because you're not allowed to have an exponent with an I. And what you want to do with this one is say 4 divided by 4 is 1 remainder 0. So remember, remainder 0 means I to the 0. And then look at your little chart. I to the 0 is 1. So it's 16 times 1. So my answer is 16 to this problem. Okay. So if this is not a FOIL problem because there's not like two terms. It's just one. It's 2i. It's not 2i plus 3. So here I can do another one. I'll do another one over here. I'll do it in red so it just shows up a little better. How about 3i to the 3rd power? Okay, well, 3 cubed, I cubed. So 3 cubed, put it in your calculator. It's 27, I cubed. Now just look at your chart. You don't have to divide because you already have a 3 there. And there's a remainder of 3. What does that equal to? This is equal to negative, right? Negative I. So the answer to this problem is 27 times negative I. Let me just start my work here. So negative 27i. That's the answer. Okay. If you have a negative, let me just do one more here for this type of problem. And I'm almost done here. But if I have negative 2i to the 5th, let's say that one. Negative 2i to the 5th. You're going to do negative 2 to the 5th. Again, you're going to put in your calculator. Now, make sure you put parentheses around there too, because sometimes, especially with like to an even exponent, it's going to give you the wrong answer. So just use the parentheses. All right. Anyway, negative 2 to the 5th is negative 32. All right, just by your calculator. And then if you left it as negative 32i to the 5th, I'd mark it wrong because you have an exponent bigger than, well, you have an exponent, period. Okay, so you're going to say 5 divided by 4 is 1.25. The 0.25 means remainder 1. So it's the same thing as I to the first power. And if you look at your chart, I to the first power is just I. So the answer is negative 32I. Okay? All right. Cool. One last, actually kind of two last kind of problems here. And they're both foil. Well, that's not, they're not both foil. Okay, let's do a foil problem. So if I give you a problem that looks like this, I root 3 plus 2 and I root 3 minus 2. You have to multiply that together. It's still foil. It looks a little scary, but it's not. I root 3, so first term. So I root 3 times I root 3. Remember, root 3 times root 3 is just 3. You could say root 9, but if I said, what's root 10 billion times root 10 billion? It's just 10 billion. Okay? So this gives us 3i squared. I times I is I squared. Again, we're using FOIL. So first, outer, so minus 2i root 3. Inner, plus 2i root 3, and last, minus 4. Now the beauty is these cancel, don't they? Oh yeah. So you wind up getting 3i squared minus 4, and if you left that as the answer, I'd mark it wrong because you see an I squared there. And if you look at your little chart, I squared, and we already know that, equals negative 1. So that is just negative 3 minus 4, so the answer is negative 7. That's your final answer, negative 7. Okay? It's not bad. So last kind of problem is if you don't have an I in the problem already, but you have a square root that's negative, you already know what to do, right? So here, we did this yesterday, or the last lesson. So 6 plus square root of negative 16 plus negative 3 minus the square root of negative 9. So this looks kind of scary, but guys, turn into a problem that we know already. You guys know what the square root of negative 16 is. Okay, the first is I'm going to take this I out. So you get 6 plus, and if I take an I out, that just gives me I root 16. And same thing with this one, minus, and take an I out, the negative, so it's I root 9. Okay, and these come out to be nice ones. I'm going to give you guys nice ones. So root 16 is 4. So you really get this. 6 plus 4i and negative 3 minus 3i. Okay, so look for that. So it might be a plus sign, well, we'll do the same thing we'll do with a minus sign here, just in a second. But actually, if we did the same thing with a minus sign, watch this. So 6 plus square root of negative 16 minus negative 3 minus root negative 9. So if you did all this work, you'd get to the same thing as this third line here. So I would get 6 plus 4i, everything would be the same, minus negative 3 minus 3i. Right? It's all the same except this one's got a negative here, and this one's a positive. Okay? So if you have a square root that's a negative, change it to an I. Well, let's finish it up here, math fans. So this is going to be 6 plus 4i, and this is plus, you just rewrite it, minus 3 minus 3i. And I put it together, I get 6 minus 3 is 3, 4i minus 3i is I. So that's your answer. And this one is 6 plus 4i, distribute the negative, so it means change the sign, so plus 3 plus 3i. So combine like terms, 6 plus 3 is 9, 4i plus 3i is 7i. And that's your answer for that one. Okay, so those are, I covered kind of a lot of different types of problems, but if, on the worksheet for homework tonight, those are the kind of problems that you're going to see. So just make sure you know how to do them. Okay, that's it, math fans. Have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.